بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته everyone, and welcome to this majlis. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive our sins of our shuyukh, our parents, our beloved ones, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept from you all, brothers and sisters, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us al-ikhlas in our statements, in our actions, in our ibadah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make this majlis one of the majalis that we will come Yawm al-Qiyamah, will find the reward heavy in our mizan. Ameen. So we're still learning from Surah An-Naml, the surah which is revealed in Mecca, or as known in the terminologies of the ulama of Tafseer, a Makki surah. And we continue to learn about the story or the ayat are related to Nabiullah, the Prophet of Allah, Sulaiman. So before I start, do you have any questions related to what we learned before? Yes, go ahead.
Not allowed to kill the poor insect. We got the ant and the bee. What is that?
Okay, you're referring to the hadith that, as we said last lesson, that the Prophet ﷺ made nahi. And when we say the Sahabi Ibn Abbas actually said radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, and the hadith in Sunan Abi Dawud that he said Rasulullah ﷺ naha an qatl. And nahi, when the word Sahabi says naha Rasulullah, the first meaning that should come into our mind, nahi is haram, tahrim, means muharram, is forbidden, it's not allowed. But the fuqaha, they can go into, because for different reasons in fiqh, because of different other factors that can be there in the issue itself, the ulama, they reduce the level of a nahi from being something haram into something being makruh. But the hukum here for the killing the ants is haram, unless, as we said, there is a necessity for that, as we explained last lesson. What are the other animals with that? He mentioned an-namlu wal-nahl, the bees, wal-difda', the frogs, and the fourth one I can't remember it now, but these are what as-surad, yeah. So naha an-nabiy sallallahu alaihi wasallam an qatli, the Prophet sallallahu disliked or made tahrim of killing the an-naml, which is the ants, and as-surad. As-surad is a bird that it's not very common in the hot, in the cold countries. It said that is very common and lives more in the hot countries. Is very fast and goes, and if you see, maybe I'm going to refer to you something, maybe it's not really right and to refer to you to, but if you see in hot time in summer in Mecca around the Kaaba, there is like a black bird, flies very fast, goes right and left. That is a surad. And we have the ad-difda', which is the frog, and the frog was mentioned on the separate hadith as well as the nahl, which is the bees. And in one of other narration mentioned al-hudhud, which will come into that as well, is in the story of Sulaiman. Rasulullah sallallahu made a nahi to kill al-hudhud. The reason for that, the ulama went into different types, different explanation, because this animal makes this, makes that. This is all ta'lilat. We call ta'lil to give a reason for why the nahi, the tahrim was made. Sometimes you don't need to know. Just the tahrim from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is muharram. So you're not allowed to eat the pig. You're not allowed to eat it. But what is the reason for that? When you come to the reason, sometimes the ulama, they mention the reason, and they differ about the reason. And that, the differences or the ikhtilaf of the ulama makes the issue related to that some other masail as well. And sometimes the reason of the tahrim of considering something muharram will be mentioned by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we don't have a specific reason mentioned by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but these are muharram animals to kill them. Anything else? Okay, let's carry on then. So last lesson we talked about the saying of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as you can see. حتى إذا أتوا على واد النمل قالت نملة يا أيها النمل ادخلوا مساكنكم لا يحطمنكم سليمان وجنوده وهم لا يشعرون. So we talked about the statement of this Namla. I think we went into the story between Qatada and Imam Abu Hanifa. Some of the brothers and sisters came after the last lesson, and they talked about how powerful, and one of the ladies, sisters said, they mentioned about how powerful are the females in terms of the kingdoms of the animals, and especially talking about the small animals, small insects like the ants and like the bees and even spiders. Um, they all the time, the one who's in power and in the strong position all the time, the female. So we talked about that. Ya ayyuhan namlu udkhulu masakinakum. So the advice of this ant, and as we mentioned, whether she was the queen or the ruler or the normal ant, is all that explained. لا يحطمنكم سليمان وجنوده وهم لا يشعرون. The main lesson that I would like to mention again, if I did not mention it last lesson, the main lesson, the main learning from this ayah is to learn that the person, whether you are in charge of a community, in charge of a group of people, in charge of your family, that you all the time, or you are not in charge, it's just a symbol, a normal person in the community, all the time you should give the advice. Because we're saying that if you are in charge, because some ulama are saying, قالت نملة, this ant, she was the king or the queen of the empire of the animals in that valley. And if she was a normal ant amongst a bigger group, she gave the advice. And you need to give the advice for the safety of the community and what you're required by the Sharia, that you need to give the advice. You need to, it's not right to look at your brother, to look at your sister, carry on with life, smiling to each other. This is what we call it is a nifaq. You see and you know that your brother is doing something wrong. You know and you see and you can tell that your sister doing something wrong, and you don't advise her. That is a nifaq. What is a nifaq? More than this. This is what nifaq al-amali, the practical nifaq that we have amongst us, the Muslims. So we need to give the advice. I'm repeating this because I said last time, because this is really, it's not the story to know about Suleiman has this power, there's an ant said this, an ant said that. This is, you read stories, the children, they have little books that publish, they read the story of the ant with Suleiman. But what is the lesson from there? We are older, we are adults, we need to learn from that. You should not keep quiet. I'm not saying that you stand up amongst your family, friends, and shout. You follow the rules, you follow the etiquettes of giving the advice. See the way how she spoke. She spoke in a very nice way, and she advised, she gave the warning, she gave a reason, she gave an excuse also for the one who's going to attack them or to going to damage them. She made all of that, and you need to do that. And as we said last time, لَتَأْمُرُنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَلَتَنْهَوُنَّ عَنِ الْمُنْكَرِ أَوْ لَيَأْتِيَنَّ اللَّهُ بِقَوْمٍ يُحِبُّهُمْ وَيُحِبُّونَ. Allah or Rasulullah said that you should make amr bil ma'roof, tell people about good things, and make the inkar al munkar. You have to tell people about something wrong. If they do something wrong, tell them about it. Give the nasiha. Otherwise, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will change you. You will go and Allah will bring other people. And one of the issues, one of the problems of Bani Israel in their times, they don't do that. They just smile at each other and they carry on with their lives, and they don't really give the advice. So we are different. This is what one of the main lessons that you learn from here, that you should give that advice. And whether you are in charge of something, whether you are a simple person. So don't, as we said many times before, don't take it as a personal. It's an advice has to be given, has to be given. And listen to the advice from the others as well. So that's that. Then, as in reaction from what the ant said, as the Mufass, yes, Isham. Take this so it can be heard in the recording. Yeah.
Just that point on giving advice. How often should you keep giving advice? Because sometimes you feel you've advised someone, and if you go to advise them again, they would say, "Yes, I know, I've heard it," so, or "You've told me before." So, what's your advice? Do you just, how often do you keep advising the same person the same thing?
Well, you know the saying of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَذَكِّرْ فَإِنَّ الذِّكْرَ تَنْفَعُ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded the Prophet sallam, وَذَكِّرْ. Tadhkir is to keep reminding them, to keep mentioning this time to time, because that will be good and beneficial for the believers. They know, they learn about the Tawheed of Allah. They learn that Allah is the one, Allah has to be worshipped by himself, no one is. But Rasulullah kept the Tawheed for how many? 13 years in Mecca, and then continue with that after that in Medina. So it depends on the person and how you're attached and close to that person. If it was a member of the family, it will be even every day you're going to say that. You remind your children of the adhkar in the morning, in the evening, whenever you go out, whenever you come back, you remind them with that. This is something that's all the time has to be said. It depends what is in there. If a person at work, maybe weekly, it depends on how you get. Really, it's very difficult for me to tell unless if I know how much, how strong the relation you and the other person. If it was, well, if it was, let's say, my wife, or it was my son or my daughter, it would be different. If it was my extended family, my siblings, my parents, my friends, people that I see them, or the community, it depends on that. But you select the right time, you select this. But in my opinion, I would say to anyone, don't expect a person to be having a mixing with you and having friendship with you, a family relation and all of that without advising. That is a really, I would very, very concerned about this. If you are mixing with the other family, having weekly visiting or monthly visiting, whatever, how often that you visit each other, and don't expect me that not to give you the advice. And so this is something that I don't feel right, that it's not right to go and sit in the house of your friends and you smile, you have nice time, you drink, you eat with them, and you don't give them advice. That is not really the haqq of the brotherhood, the right of the brotherhood. You need to give them the advice. And if we Muslims practice this, we'll be in a better situation. But unfortunately, we don't practice this. I did mention to you, I'm not sure if last time, I know when I came to this country, that's a long time ago, as a brother said to me, I'm not going to mention any names or any groups or something like that. A brother said to me, at the time I came, still new, came from Saudi after spending there for 10 years, and he came to this country new, still fresh. So he's an Arab person from my community, and said to me, well, this is after a number of times visiting and seeing each other. I don't know him before I get to know him in here. He said, well, I don't like, he said to me, and openly, I don't like those people who came from Saudi. I said to him, why? He said, well, they have to tell you whether it's haram or halal straight away. He mentioned a group of people. He said, I like them because really I enjoy time with them, and no one will tell you off or tell you something that you should not do that. I said to him, I'm really sorry, my dear brother. I don't expect me to stay with you and have that relation without advising you. I can't do that. So if you like it, it will be good. If you don't like it, then, well, I can't do anything. So our nature, I think, for the community, they don't like people telling them. And that's, someone even told me once, he said, he has friends, he said, they don't like attending classes because when you attend classes, a class is meaning about general circle, that giving in the masjid, and where people that get reminded. He said, because they will be told about certain things, whether you should do, you should not do, allow, not allow. And by knowing that, he will feel guilty that, oh, I know about it now. Staying there in my home, not to know about it, will be better for me than coming into a class and to know about something halal and haram, and then I feel the guilt in my life that, oh, I know that, let's say, that action is not allowed, or that statement is not allowed, or this is not allowed. You live and you continued life in peace, as he's saying. But you are Muslim. You are required by the Sharia to learn your deen. Those who are teaching you the deen, as Rasulullah described them, as the ulama of the tabi'in described them, they dragging people from their, whatever the situation they are in, with the chains into the goodness, into the Jannah, into being in the pleasure of being and the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So look into ourselves now. We've been dragged by, alhamdulillah, this masjid and the activity I'm making in here to be under this roof and this place, blessed place, and we are getting the reward whether we like it. Maybe I'm forcing myself to wake up in the morning to come in here. So this is the situation. People are trying to avoid gatherings where there are lessons and lectures because they don't want to listen into something halal and haram. But you need to remember, it's not the choice of A or X person to say haram or halal or to continue with that. It is an obligation upon you to learn your deen. And it's not the deen to not just to know how to pray and to continue like that. It's praying is all relation from all the actions, all the activities that you do from the time when you wake up until the time you sleep. That is all Islam. And all has to be based on the rules of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even playing outside, having a nice time, the mubah, the permissible actions, going to a restaurant, eating with your family, walking in the park, all of that has an etiquette and rules, and you have to fulfill the Islam into that. And we might like it, we might say, oh, Islam is controlling everything. Yes, that is, Islam is a way of life. Not Islam is a way of like Christianity. You come into the church and you worship the Lord and you go out and do whatever you want to do. Islam is different. That's why we are different from any other religions. We are from the time we wake up until we sleep. It's all rules of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has to be fulfilled that. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enable us to fulfill all of this. We are not perfect, but we need to learn. I mean, even if I don't practice some of the rules, but I need to know them because I might be one day I'll be strong in my iman, and then I practice that because I learned it, I know it. And sometimes my iman goes weak and I will feel bad and don't practice that. But I need to learn that. We need to learn it. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enable us, brothers and sisters, to learn our religion and to practice that. And the advice, back into your question, is really varies. So based on who is the person there and how often you see, and what is also the issue itself, what is the problem, what is the munkar that the person is doing as well. So all of that is controls the answer. Yeah. Okay, so then we said as a reaction from the scholars of Tafseer, they mentioned that Sulaiman alayhi salam heard the statement of the ant from 3 miles away. And we don't have an evidence. All the stories that we talk about, detailed stories about what happened between Sulaiman alayhi salam and the ants, is all from Bani Israel. And I told you the narrations of Bani Israel, how we treat it, as we told you before in Tafseer. So it was said that with a distance of 3 miles, Sulaiman alayhi salam heard that, and because he had that, as a reaction of that, he said, فَتَبَسَّمَ ضَاحِكًا. We did talk about at-tabassum, which is smiling, and al-dhahik, which is laughing. And we talked about the third level, which is al-qahqaha, when you go into a louder voice until you can't control yourself, or maybe you will start, your tears comes out. We talked about the rules in Islam about that. So the reason of the smiling of Sulaiman alayhi salam, is it because of the statement of the ant that he heard it? That's one of the views of the ulama. The ulama said, Sulaiman, he smiled because of the warning that the ant that said it to her people, and she warned them and she reminded them and she commanded them to escape and to go inside their homes under the ground. And also the excuse that the ant made for Sulaiman and his army. That made Sulaiman to smile. And it was mentioned another, which is a ta'ajjub. Generally could say ta'ajjub, which means that a wonder, astonishment of Sulaiman when he heard that from this ant. Which is really to be, if it was me or you, I will get astonished as well. But whether I get to react, to smile to that or not, that's people, they react differently. The reactions of the people in things are different. Sulaiman reacted with that, with a smile, and he saw the astonishment. He was astonished with the statement of this ant, and so that's his reaction. With the other view, the other opinion, Sulaiman alayhi salam, it said that he smiled to the power that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him, the blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that he had, which is being able to hear, being able to understand the language of the ant, the language of this small animal. And that was a smile to him, as a smile of receiving and having a blessing from Allah. And that's also We are as a human, we are the slaves of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We do that. Sometimes when we receive something that we are really keen to have it, and even if we are not keen to have that, whenever that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless us with something, we are so happy, we smile, and sometimes even tears comes out, which is really the point of being very, very happy. So these are two views mentioned by the ulama for why did Sulaiman alayhi salam smile when he heard that. فَتَبَسَّمَ ضَاحِكًا مِنْ قَوْلِهَا. The ulama who said that Sulaiman smiled because of the statement of the ant, because of saying Allah min qawliha. But that's not a clear evidence, because tabassama dahikan min qawliha. Min, as if you're saying bi qawliha, it means because of her statement, because of her saying, the saying that the ant said it. But that's not a very clear evidence to show that or to prove that Sulaiman smiled because of the statement of the ant. Yeah, she said that, she said it, but he remembered the blessing of Allah. He enabled him to understand this language. Or he heard that and he got astonished with the meaning of the words that she said. And then after that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَقَالَ رَبِّي, in the tongue of Sulaiman alayhi salam, وَقَالَ رَبِّي أَوْزِعْنِي أَنْ أَشْكُرَ نِعْمَتَكَ الَّتِي أَنْعَمْتَ عَلَيَّ وَعَلَى وَالِدَيَّ وَأَنْ أَعْمَلَ صَالِحًا تَرْضَاهُ وَأَدْخِلْنِي بِرَحْمَتِكَ فِي عِبَادِكَ الصَّالِحِينَ. At the time when you receive a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's required from the slave of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to thank Allah. Look into the statement of the praise that Sulaiman said. He said, وَقَالَ, that Sulaiman said, Rabbi. It means, Ya Rabbi, O my Lord, O my Lord. When Sulaiman used the word Rabb, not Ya Allah, because he is not in a position of remembering the ibadah, means worshipping, like praying, or he's remembering of he's remembered the blessing that he received, and the one who gives and the one who takes, he is a Rabb. You know, we have the word Rabb, that's the Lord, and we have the word Allah. The word Allah is used, you remember the meaning, the linguistic meaning of Allah. Allah is ma'luh, means ma'bud. You remember that when you are in a ibadah, when you are praying, you are fasting, you're giving, you're doing a ibadah. But when you are talking about an ayah, or you're talking, remembering something to do with you've been blessed by giving something, or something was taken away from you, you use the word Rabb. That's one of the reasons that Sulaiman used the word Rabb. Second reason, which is also stronger and mentioned by the ulama said, if you look into the ad'iyah, the du'as, the supplications of all the anbiya in the Quran and in the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you will find the anbiya of Allah use the word Rabb in their du'a. The du'a of Nuh, he used the word Rabb. Du'a of Yunus, he used the word Rabb. Du'a of Ibrahim, he used the word Rabb. Du'a of Musa used the word Rabb. So Rabb, the word Rabb used in the tongues of all the anbiya when they made du'a. And because of that, some ulama, they went into saying that the word Rabb is the name, the great name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You know that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Inna lillahi isman a'za. Allah has a great name. If you supplicate Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala using that name, your dua will be answered, your dua will be accepted. So because of that, I heard and received, and I was advised by our scholars, our ulama in our classes, that when you make a dua, it will be good that to merge between Allahumma Ya Rabb. If you use Allahumma Ya Rabb, you merge between the two names. And if it was the word Allahumma or Allah is Ismullah al-A'zam, then you used it. If it was the word Rabb, is the great name of Allah, then you used it, and then you expect an answer from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah will answer your dua. So, قَالَ رَبِّي أَوْزَعْنِي. So because Sulaiman here, he remembered that the blessing that he received from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he wanted to thank Allah and to appreciate that name. He used the word Rabb, and as we said, it might be the great name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Ar-Rabb. قَالَ رَبِّي أَوْزَعْنِي. أوزعني, enable me, give me the ability, give me the tawfiq. For what? أن أشكر نعمتك التي أنعمت عليه. Sulaiman alayhi salam, he admitted the first thing that he received a ni'mah from Allah. The blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is a really, really important for us, brothers and sisters, especially for the people who lives in the West. And I'm talking from my experience, from what I heard and what I experienced from a community lives in this society, they refer the ni'mah that they had into their intelligence. And that's a very dangerous. I heard it from brothers who have beards, brothers who comes into the salah in the masjid, brothers who are generally are good. They're good Muslims, but without them noticing this detailed information, they refer their success in this life to their smartness, their cleverness, I worked hard, brother. I worked so hard. I went to that university. I've been staying. No, it's not that. You have to admit all that ni'mah is from Allah. Allah gave you that not because you worked hard, not because you graduated from that university, not because you've been blessed with a good father, good mother, not because it's not right. This is a shirk in your rububiyyah. You have to be careful. You might commit a shirk when you go into a way and adding and referring what you have from the ni'am in this dunya to yourself and to your ability. You're committing a shirk. It's all from Allah. Sulaiman alayhi salam, he admitted, نِعْمَتَكَ الَّتِي أَنْعَمْتَ عَلَيَّ. The ni'mah, the blessing that you, Allah, that you gave me, you blessed me with. Give me the ability to thank you. Give me the ability to continue saying thank you to you, O Allah. And that is a very important. And that's why we have Sayyidul Istighfar, the master of saying Astaghfirullah, the hadith, the famous hadith, Allahumma anta rabbi la ilaha illa ant, astaghfiruk. You know, I said, Abu'u bi'ni'matika alay. In that hadith, the long one, that you say it in the morning and in the evening, say, Abu'u bi'ni'matika alay. I admit your ni'mah upon me. Oh Allah, you say that every morning and the evening. In words, but when you come into inside the brain and believe in the heart, you believe and you tell your children, look, I worked so hard and that's why you got this. So I would like you to work hard. This is a wrong teaching. This is a wrong teaching. Yeah, you work hard so you get Allah's blessings, Allah will give you. You're not using the word Allah in there. You're referring everything into your ability, into your brain, into your effort. You're working overtime, or that's not right. So I have to mention Allah in there. All that blessing from Allah. Allah saw how much that I worked hard. Allah blessed me. Allah rewarded me. I pleased Allah. Allah gave me. So that's what you need to say. So he is Sulaiman alayhi salam, Rabbi awzi'ni. He is asking Allah to give him the ability, because you might remember this all ni'mah from Allah, but you'll not be able to thank Allah. So you might be, that's a case, that's a scenario, someone is remembering all these blessings are from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but is not able, she or he or they are not able to thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala of that ni'mah. So ask Allah to give you the ability to thank Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. So awzi'ni an ashkura. Oh Allah, give me the ability to thank your the ni'mah, ni'mataka allati an'amta alayya. He used ni'mataka, your ni'mah. It's not my ni'mah. Allati an'amta alayya, the one you blessed me with. So everything in every word, and he is saying it, he is referring to that you, everything is from you, O Allah. What is the ni'mah? The ni'mah that he was able to understand the language of the birds. He's understood what the ant said. And by the way, I just remembered now, they're saying if Sulaiman alayhi salam was able to understand the language of the birds, then how he understood the language of the ant? The ant is not a bird. So is he able to understand the language of the animals? Which is a view mentioned by the scholars as well, but we don't have an evidence for that. And they're saying, this is something out of the tafseer, but those who study biology understand the animals. They're saying the ant originally is an animal, can fly, or an animal that can fly, and in a time has wings as well, can fly. So really, the ant is one of the, let's say, department or group of the animals that can fly as well, and that will be included in at-tayr, the word at-tayr, that Sulaiman was able to understand the language of the birds. So the ni'am that Sulaiman received from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he gave him the big army from jinn to understand the language of the jinn. He commands the jinn and the shayateen, the ins, big land, the being, the son inheriting the power from his father. So all this ni'mah that from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala regardless whether the ni'mah was big or small. Even if it was a little, tiny, small ni'mah, then you need to thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala about it. So فتبسم ضاحكا من قولها وقال ربي أوزعني أن أشكر نعمتك التي أنعمت علي. With talking about the ni'mah, is a famous story that narrated by Imam al-Tirmidhi in his Sunan from Abu Qilaba, Abdullah bin Zayd al-Jarmi, one of the great ulama of hadith. And his name comes in Tafseer as well. He's a mufassir. And from the time of the early generation, from Tabi' al-Tabi'in al-Tabi'in, Abdullah ibn Zayd al-Jarmi, Abu Qilaba, he's very renowned scholar. It was said that the story is quite long. I'm going to summarize that story to you. The narrator of this story, he said he was traveling in Al-Arish. Al-Arish is an area between Palestine and Egypt. And he said, I heard the sound of someone praising and making supplication to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Beautiful, he said, a very beautiful supplication. And he mentioned the long supplication that he heard it. And he said, I'm coming closer. I see a tent in there. I'm coming closer and closer and closer to see and to hear the person who's supplicating and making this praise to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and thanking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This person must have a great blessing from Allah. Otherwise, why he's making all this dua and all this thanking to Allah, appreciating Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's ni'mah. When I came close, I found a person sitting, has no legs, no hands, no arms actually. He said no arms and no legs. Piece of meat sitting in there and praising Allah. And he said to him, Ya hada, was Abu Qilaba, I heard you saying this and that and this and that. And he repeated to him the dua and the supplication, the thanks of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as if you have been giving the whole dunya is in between your hand. And you don't have legs, you don't have arms. He said, but I still have a tongue and I still have a heart remembering Allah. As long as my tongue is still working and my heart remembering Allah, I will thank Allah. I will appreciate the ni'mah that Allah gave me. And that is famous from Abu Qilaba. He said, I mean, the story is quite long. He said, what can is there something that I can help you with? He said, I have a servant who used to be with me in here. He used to make me, bring water to me and gives me water and serve me. But it's been 2 days not to be seen and to come to me. Can you find where is he? And can you just give me some water to drink and all of that? And he went around, he found his servant is being killed by the wild animal. And he came back to him that your servant is not there anymore. And it's just a story of sabr. Imam Tirmidhi narrated the story to show that the level of the sabr that a Muslim can have, and also the level of the sabr and shukrullah, to thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala of the ni'mah, they go together. Because you need to accept the qadr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, have sabr upon that, and thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it's really important. A Muslim, a believer of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, should thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in all the situation. And that's why the Quran started with Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. So all that alhamd is a praise, they thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So remember that. So Sulaiman alayhi salam said, قال ربي أوزعني أن أشكر نعمتك التي أنعمت علي وعلى والدي. So Sulaiman here did not remember the ni'mah that was given to him directly, also the ni'mah that was given to his parents. وَعَلَى وَالِدَيَّ. Walidayya means my both parents, my father and my mother. Walid and walid. The word walid is used to refer to the father, but when you make it as a dual, as still referring to the parents. And sometimes, and this is something that we did talk about it in one of the classes, I'm not sure here, or another class, that sometimes we inherit a lot of, I'm not sure how many of you in there, but I remember one of the brothers, once he said to me, Alhamdulillah, I have this, I have that, and I said, you don't have anything. I'm open person, so you might hear that from me one day. I said, you didn't have anything. This house, a semi-detached house, 4-bedroom house, what do you have? That's from your father. He didn't do anything. Your father went into a mortgage. He put himself in danger with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You inherited that from your father. Do you still remember your dad? Do you remember him? Do you make dua for him? وعلى والدي. He's remembering that the ni'mah that you gave to my family, I inherited that from them. So whenever you have something, I did mention once of the, I think that was of Ramadan, and this story will not go from my mind. Wallahi, I remember one person gave thousands of money, and he said, this money is not on my behalf, or my wife, or my children, not even on behalf of my father. He referred into his great grandfather, because they have many lands. They are from the villages. They have so many lands, and they have all these lands. It was because of them. If we don't have these lands, which inherited by my grandfather gave it to my father, and my father now is giving it to me. And lucky with this family is one person comes in each generation. From the generation of a great grandfather was one person who inherited all of that, and then another one person inherited all of that, because if there were two or three, will be divided, will be less by the time comes to you. But it was one person until his time was one person, and it's a great ni'mah from Allah. He remembered that I'm giving all this charity. It's about 5,000 he gave. He said, I'm giving all of that. He said, just on their behalf, I want Allah to reward them. So the right person, the good person, will remember the parents as a first priority for you to parents, because if you didn't see your grandparents, then if you see them, then the grandparents are parents to you as well. So the father of the father is a father to you. And if you didn't see them, remember those people. So remember those people in your dua, at least the minimum that you can do in your dua. Because any sadaqah jariyah that you do, they will get a reward from that, because the people are made you, the people who are brought you up and they made you. But here, Sulaiman is giving, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is in this ayah giving us a message that also Sulaiman from his dua for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is remembering the ni'mah that was given to his father, Dawood alayhi salam. We don't have much information about the mother. We'll come inshallah later on in Surah Sad when we come into the story of his parents. But it's good to remember that, oh Allah, give me the ability to thank you, to say thank you for the ni'mah that you gave me and you gave to my parents. Because Sulaiman inherited the kingship from his father. Dawood was a king and inherited that from his father. Allah selected him and made him a Nabi. Yes, that's from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but he inherited the kingship all from the qadr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but he inherited that from his father. So this is a message for us to remember our parents and our dua, to remember them and to show the importance of the parents. And it shows to us the importance of our parents. Without them, then we are nothing. And one of the first obligations comes after the tawheed of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It comes into obeying the parents and keeping good relation with them. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enable us to have and to continue the good relation with them. وَأَنْ أَعْمَلَ صَالِحًا تَرْضَى. After admitting the ni'mah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and admitting the ni'mah, the blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala comes from the heart. If the heart is awake and reflected on the blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, naturally it comes onto the tongue. And that's what he said, enable me to thank you, and you say, Alhamdulillah, Ashukru lillah. So you continue saying, you praise Allah, you thank Allah with words, and that's in your tasbih and your dhikr. Then, the third level after that, وَأَنْ أَعْمَلَ صَالِحًا. Al-amal salih, it is the action to prove that you are thanking Allah. It is the highest level. The level of as-salihin, the level of the pious and righteous people, to appreciate Allah's ni'mah, they do good deeds. Yes, your heart remembered that. You said thank you with your tongue, but then higher action is you do a higher level, you need to do an action. You need to make a good deed, and that is good deed, reflecting and showing that you are really thanking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We are coming soon into the month of Muharram, and you know the story of the fasting, the 10th of Muharram. The famous story, what did the Jews say to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in Medina when he saw them fasting the 10th of Muharram? He said, هذا يوم نجى الله فيه موسى. This is a day when Allah saved Musa and Bani Israel from Fir'aun, and we are fasting this day to thank Allah. That's Bani Israel. So Amal salih, when you are giving something great, you thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for that, you appreciate the ni'mah, do some good deeds, giving a charity, fasting a day, reading extra Quran, doing anything that pleases Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from as-salihat. And that is showing you are putting yourself in a higher level, means that you raised your states of being a simple person, being in the level of as-salihin, the pious and righteous people. When a'mala salihan, and I enable me, O my Lord, to do good deed. And a'mal salihan, al-amal as-salih. You find that a lot in the Quran and the Sunnah of Rasulullah. Al-amal is described as a salih. When the deed will be described as a salih, it means that fulfill two conditions, my dear brothers and sisters. When the deed is fulfilled and the two conditions are fulfilled, then you can consider that action is a salih. What are the two conditions? First one, you do it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the sincerity. So purely for Allah. It's no one has any share in that. It's for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's al-ikhlas. Second condition for that amal, for that action to consider it as a salih, if it was based on the sunnah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You follow the sunnah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in doing that action. If these conditions are fulfilled, then your amal can be considered and can be described as amal salih. Otherwise, it's not be amal salih. When a'mala salihan tardah. That amal salih, Sulaiman alayhi salam is requesting Allah to enable him that to do a good deed that you'll be pleased with. There are some good deeds that every good deed Allah will be pleased with it. But the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala goes from a simple level into high levels. If you continue doing greater good deeds, Allah will be pleased with you higher, more. If you save someone from death, if you do a great good deed, it's not like someone doing a small good deed. So the deeds are different, as you all know that. Yeah. So that's tardah, you'll be pleased with it. وَأَدْخِلْنِي بِرَحْمَتِكَ فِي عِبَادِكَ الصَّالِحِينَ. Oh Allah, at the end, that's his dua. After doing that, allow me to enter, to be amongst those. أَدْخِلْنِي بِرَحْمَتِكَ. Allow me to be under the mercy, your mercy, and to be amongst عِبَادَكَ الصَّالِحِينَ. He's a Nabi of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's a prophet from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And yet he is asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be amongst the slaves of Allah who are salihin. Don't think about this ayah when he said, Ibadak as-salihin, the pious, your slaves who are pious and righteous. Don't think about the levels of the people. Sulaiman alayhi salam, he did not mean to be in, the word salih can be used when we talk about ranks of people. Someone who is a sinful person, someone is a good person, someone is a salih, someone is muttaqi, someone is a wali of Allah, and then a nabi of Allah. These ranks and these levels, he's not referring to that. He's referring to the general word of the salih. A salih being amongst those who are righteous and pious. And amongst those people are anbiya. If you go into that details, then you find there are amongst them are anbiya, and amongst them are messengers from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and there are different levels in amongst this title. So that's what he meant in here. Allow me to have your mercy and to be amongst those who are pious and righteous. In a general meaning of that. It's important for us when we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when we do a good deeds, when we do a'mal like that, we're asking Allah. So sometimes we, with us as a community, as individual people, we do a'mal and we know that we are not good enough. We know that we are not really fantastic, but and we don't ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us amongst the salihin. You need to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to enable you to be amongst the salihin. Even if you are doing not much, even if you are not really fantastic a believer, not doing everything in the way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be pleased with it, but ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to have mercy upon you and to allow you to be amongst as-salihin, because that is a kind of a tawfiq, a guidance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if you get into that level, you'll be able to do a lot of good deeds. So beautiful dua. And similar to this will come later on some other surahs. And because of the time, we'll stop in here. I intended from last lesson, I said to you this dua or this ayah is very beautiful and we need to have it is in one lesson, and we did that. So inshallah, we'll continue with the following next week. If you have any question now, please go ahead with that. Otherwise, we'll stop in here inshallah, and that's enough for today. Allah knows best. Subhanakallah wa bihamdik, la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.